Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores a goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. We've got a lot to get into today. We finished up the round of 16 in the Champions League, and we already know what the draws are going to be in the quarterfinals. And we have got some juicy ones to talk about today, guys. We're going to be getting into that. We're going to be getting into Premier League, all the other top 5 leagues. I'm going to be continuing my top 10, series of like each team, Premier League club, which players are the best on their teams. And so let's just discuss quickly, going through each segment, what we're going to be discussing in today's show. Like I said at the beginning of this of the episode, I'm going to be talking about the Champions League round of 16 recap, just going over those 4 games that happened this past week. Talk about, which team had the upper hand, obviously which teams are moving on to the next round, and just my thoughts on those games overall. And then in the last part of that segment, I'm going to be talking about the quarterfinal draws, see, which teams are ending up on which side of the bracket, which one has the easiest path, which one has the hardest. We're going to be talking about all that in that first segment. Second, we're going to be talking about the Premier League and, of course, the FA Cup that has just happened this weekend. And then third, we're going to be talking about the top 5 leagues. If there are some cup competitions, which I know for like the French league there are, so I'm sure for the other leagues there were some. So we're going to be discussing that as well. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about the top 10 Leicester City players this season. So, let's just get started with the Champions League round of 16 recap, where we had some pretty interesting matchups. I mean, honestly, for the most part, this final day of the round of 16, or I guess you could say final 2 days for the round of 16, were not all that exciting. I mean, each team, I guess maybe Real Madrid over at Atalanta, they only had a 1-0 lead over them after the first leg, so, that could have gone anywhere. But, Man City having a 2-0 lead heading into this second leg. Bayern Munich having a 4-1 lead going into the second leg. I guess Chelsea versus Atletico Madrid. I certainly expected Atletico Madrid to come out with a lot more fire than they did in this second leg. And really, this whole knockout round, I was very disappointed in what they showed against that young Chelsea team led by Thomas Tuchel. And, man, now he's got them in the quarterfinals. That's a huge accomplishment for a new coach like that to just come on in and has clearly turned that program around, and they're on the up, absolutely. So let's just get into each of those games. We'll start with the Real Madrid versus Atalanta game, where Real Madrid was able to pretty much take command of this entire tie I would say in the first 30 minutes. I mean, they were pretty much dominating throughout this entire game. Even though Atalanta did have a decent amount of possession in the second half, it really felt like this game was going to be all Real Madrid. It never felt like they had lost control whatsoever against Atalanta. And you look at the scoreline, 3-1 win for Real Madrid, and that started with a Karim Benzema goal in the 34th minute. Which allowed them to have that 2-0 aggregate lead going into the second half, and with that away goal that they had in the first leg, it kind of made it overwhelming, especially for an Atalanta team that is kind of going through a transition period right now. Like, they still got talent, but they don't have the same kind of chemistry and the same kind of continuity that they had last season. Because, as I say, every time I mention Atalanta, they don't have, and on top of that, in this game specifically, they don't have their two best players kind of like from last season really leading the charge. Like, last season, it was all about Josep Ilicic and Papu Gomez. And obviously we know Gomez is now with Sevilla, and Ilicic, after last season, not playing for most of that like final parts of the season and kind of having a slow start here, he came off the bench in this game. And you don't put your like a really key guy off the bench unless he's not really doing anything for you. So obviously this team is clearly going through a transition period, while I guess you could kind of say the same thing for Real Madrid, but they've really turned it around since, the early parts of the year. Karim Benzema is continuously being, one of the best strikers in the world. You got Varane, Sergio Ramos, and Nacho in that back line that is, really killing it. Courtois, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And then you got that midfield. You got Federico Valverde, a great young up-and-coming midfielder. Luka Modric, one of the best in our generation, to go along with Toni Kroos, one of the best midfielders in Germany right now. And it really becomes overwhelming. And you can kind of feel that throughout this game. And in a way, I kind of felt bad for Atalanta because, they're one of those smaller teams, even though they're slowly working their way into the national spotlight because, or I guess the world spotlight, because last season was their big breakout year. They were that new, fresh attacking team that was extremely exciting to watch, and then they kind of followed it up with another decent season. Not the same type of season as last year, but still a pretty good year, even though they're going through this transition period. So I do feel like Atalanta have a lot left in the tank, like for the future, and I don't feel like they're going to be going anywhere. But you could definitely feel in this game that they were outmatched, and whether it was just that they didn't have the experience, because obviously there are a lot of guys on this Real Madrid team that have been there and done that, and that certainly will help out against a team like Atalanta that don't have that right now. You go up and down that roster, and there's not a single guy there that has made it past the semi. Did they even make it out? They didn't even make it past the quarterfinal last year, and I don't think there's a single guy on this starting 11 that has even made it past the starting 11 of the quarterfinal in the Champions League. Because last year, they made it to the quarterfinal, lost to PSG. But yeah, it's just it's not easy when you haven't been there, and that is the case for Atalanta. But still got to give them their props. They were able to at least get a goal in the second half, even though it was very late, and at least made it 3-1. But at that point, you knew this game was over, especially when Marco Asensio made a goal literally a minute later to make it 3-1 on the game, 4-1 in aggregate, and it was just see you later, Atalanta. And yeah, Real Madrid move on to the quarterfinals. Next, we have the Man City versus Borussia Mönchengladbach game. And this kind of felt the same way as that Real Madrid-Atalanta game. Mönchengladbach, kind of seemed like they were out of their depth here. So, like, completely out-talented here. Like Man City, just up and down the roster, you probably look at every single position, and you can probably say that Man City have the advantage at almost, I would say, every single one. Like, you maybe have some arguments with with players like Lars Stindl, Marcus Thuram, but maybe Newhouse, but honestly, like, I would still take almost anybody on Man City over anybody on Borussia Mönchengladbach. And on top of that, with the way Mönchengladbach has played domestically, it just did not bode well for them. And they looked flat in that first leg, and now they looked even, I don't know, I would say even worse in the second leg, because yes, they did get hit in the mouth pretty early, with 2 goals being scored on them in the first 18 minutes, one from De Bruyne and another from Gundogan. They kind of held their own after that. Even though they were still pretty much dominated in possession, the pressure that Man City was putting on them was just far too much, and they just couldn't handle it. And you can absolutely tell from the minute that this game started that it was an overwhelming matchup for Borussia Mönchengladbach. And we knew that when this tie was put together. We knew that Borussia Mönchengladbach was not going to be able to hold it together against Man City. It would be an absolute miracle of miracles. It would take a Man City, debacle, abomination to really, have this upset happen. So Man City end up winning 2-0, 4-0 on aggregate, and pretty much, ease by to a quarterfinal finish. And I mean, they look great. I mean, I'm loving the defense. Like I've said every single time that I talked about Man City, that John Stones, Ruben Diaz pairing is just, I mean, it kind of feels unstoppable right now. With Ederson between the sticks, it just doesn't feel like anybody can beat Man City right now. So they're now in the quarterfinals, and once we get to that, the quarterfinal draw preview, we'll talk about that after. Next, we're going to talk about Bayern Munich versus Lazio. And once again, another tie that felt like an overwhelming matchup for the other team. Bayern Munich are just worlds ahead of Lazio at this moment. Lazio have the potential to be a great attacking team with players like, one of the best strikers in the world in Immobile, and Luis Alberto. And most nights in Serie A, you could say that Lazio have advantages in both of those positions. That Luis Alberto and Immobile are the best players at their positions on the field. Against Bayern Munich, that's not the case. You got Lewandowski, that is just an absolute monster. I mean, the best striker in the world by far. He is strides ahead of Immobile in terms of striking position. Like last year, Immobile was a close second. Not too close, but yeah, you could say he's second for sure. But there's no argument to say that Immobile could be number one over Lewandowski. Absolutely not. It is Lewandowski and then everybody else. So even for Luis Alberto, I would not choose Luis Alberto over the center attacking midfielder for Bayern Munich in Thomas Müller. The guy is an absolute magician with the ball. The way he has been able to kind of just transform his game into, more of a play. Like, he's always been a solid playmaker. Not trying to say Müller has not been a playmaker for his career, but he was mostly known for a guy that could get in the box, finish with the best of them, and was just a workhorse. That is what, at least from my perspective, that's what I saw Müller as. I did not see him as a guy that could just, play make his butt off and just be, one of the best playmaking midfielders in the world, which is what he is right now, in my opinion. And those two guys leading the charge for this team is just, it's just overwhelming for so many teams in this competition. The only teams I can see that can really hang with this team right now, maybe Man City. I don't even think a team like PSG, because of their defense is so inconsistent. Maybe Real Madrid, if you consider Varane, Sergio Ramos, Courtois. They got a decent, defensive, and Casemiro when he returns. They got some decent defenders there, but man, it's short pickings on teams that could really handle this Bayern Munich attack. And I've only talked about Lewandowski and Müller. You add Gnabry, Sane, Kimmich, Goretzka, Pavard, Lucas Hernandez to that attack. Forget about it. It's game over from the start. And on top of that, with Bayern Munich having that 4-1 aggregate lead going into the second leg, there was little to no chance for Lazio to really, make any sort of game out of this. They scored a goal late in this game, 82nd minute, same as that Atalanta game. But really, it was just a consolation goal. Just to kind of say, yeah, we scored against Bayern Munich, because Lewandowski scored a penalty in the 33rd minute. Choupo-Moting, who has been a great addition for this Bayern Munich team, just a guy that hustles, is always in the right position at the right time. He scored in the 73rd minute to make it 2-1. I guess at that time it was 2-0 for Bayern Munich, and a 6-1 aggregate lead. So At no point were Bayern Munich threatened here. They were dominant from the kickoff, and it was just another easy win for Bayern Munich. And I knew it was going to be this way because, I mean, Lazio just don't have the talent to keep up with Bayern Munich. Like, they're a solid Serie A team, but they're not even top 5 in their league right now. And with the way they're playing there, combined with the way that they had been showing in the Champions League, it was a no contest. Bayern Munich were winning this 10 out of 10. And lastly, we're going to be talking about, in my opinion, the biggest, I don't want to say upset, but it's like the biggest disappointment, in my opinion, for the quarterfinals, with Atletico Madrid allowing Chelsea to absolutely shut them out in this round of 16 tie, eventually losing 3-0 on aggregate and having pretty much no answer for Chelsea's defense. I mean, in this game, they had 10 shots, 4 on target. They didn't maintain possession, so they didn't even dominate in that side of the ball, and it was just a poor game from Atletico, man. They never showed up. They never showed up, and it baffles me because it's like, how in the world do you play as good as you do all season, and then you come out in the knockout rounds where you have kind of not been playing well over the past few seasons and throw another bomb like this? This is a terrible sign for Diego Simeone. Like, for you to come out for you to get kicked out of the tournament like this, when you were having a domestic season the way you were having, I was considering you one of the best teams left on the board. I mean, there's no doubt. There was no doubt about it in my mind. Obviously, now I was completely wrong. I mean, Atletico just weren't ready for this level of competition, clearly. And I feel like it's time, even though this might sound a little crazy, but with the consistent failures in the Champions League, it seems, and you cannot say that it was talent this time, because Atletico Madrid have the talent. Luis Suarez, João Felix, Saúl, Nkoke, Carrasco, Llorente, Lodi, Jose Jimenez, Oblak, like one of the best goalkeepers in the world. It doesn't, like, in my opinion, there is no reason for them to have lost this game against a Chelsea team that just put together most of these pieces here. You know, Timo Werner, Kai Havertz, and Hakim Ziyech, all who played on the front three, were all newly acquired players. Most of the players here on this Atletico Madrid team have been here for multiple seasons. So the continuity isn't an issue. So what is it? In my opinion, it's time for Diego Simeone to move on and maybe he's going to get picked up. I mean, he's one of the most, one of the most successful coaches in history, but it seems like his methods, his strategies just aren't getting through to his players, and because they looked just out of sorts, man, during this entire 2 legs. And I honestly feel like it's just time. It's just time, because there was no excuses for Diego Simeone this season. He doesn't have the players for his system. He has, he plays a slow system, and the players around him just aren't into it. Whatever the case may be, it's just not viable excuses anymore. And I feel like Diego Simeone needs to move on, and Atletico Madrid needs to look for a new coach. It's just time. So that's going to wrap it up for the Champions League round of 16 recap. Now let's get into that quarterfinal draw. We have a couple interesting ones, man. I mean, you got Real Madrid versus Liverpool. Two of the top. I mean, from last season, they were two of the top teams in the entire league, in the entire world, I should say. And obviously this year they've both gone through struggles. Liverpool a lot more than Real Madrid, but still, both have not been their world-class self for most of the season. Then you got Man City versus Borussia Dortmund, and I feel like that's going to be a very exciting tie. You got Dortmund, the young Dortmund team that is just such an electric attacking team. against Man City and their stout defense and just overall great team, just chemistry. I don't know. I just feel like I'm not saying Man City are going to lose here because Dortmund are, they're not that good. Like, they still got a lot of growing up to do. They have consistently failed in domestic league. In the Bundesliga, it has not gone well for them there. And it's going to take a lot for Dortmund to really, overcome Man City for two legs. They need to play great for two legs. However, they do have the best striker, and I would say probably the best attacking player in this entire tie. Not to say that, Kevin De Bruyne, in my opinion, I don't consider him an attacking player. He can score when he really needs to, but he prefers to set players up. I don't see him as a guy that's going to go and push it up and just try to take a goal on his own. Erling Haaland, that guy is an absolute monster, can certainly change a tie. I mean, you saw it this past weekend against Köln. I mean, the way he was able to just, get Dortmund out of their hole and was at least able to get them a tie in that game. He has that sort of game-changing, skill sets. And if they have any chance at getting over Man City, they need Erling Haaland to be at the top of his game. And, they got to hope, that he does that because this could be the last season that they have Erling Haaland with them. And if that's the case, they want to get every ounce of talent out of him so that they can, still enjoy the season. I mean, it's Dortmund, so they're still going to have, a lot of great players, but still they got to hope that Erling Haaland and also Jadon Sancho have some, incredible games in this tie. Next, we have Porto versus Chelsea, and this is by far the easiest matchup here. I mean, Porto are good, just beat Juventus in the last round. Chelsea, are showing signs of growth since Tuchel, has joined them and has, really improved this team's concept and just the way that they play. It's been really, really, a lot of improvement, and I've been really impressed with what Chelsea have been able to do. But at the same time, this is the most underwhelming tie. I could easily say that I don't really care which team wins here, even though, yes, I'm low-key a Chelsea fan because of Christian Pulisic, but he has not been given any sort of time to play there, and so I take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, I'm not really looking forward to anything in this tie. I'm still gonna watch it. It's Champions League football, but still, I'm not excited at all about it. But now that leads me to the most exciting tie. We got Bayern Munich versus PSG, the rematch of last year's Champions League final, and I mean, this is going to be a heck of a tie. I mean, when I first found out about this draw, us drawing Bayern Munich, my first reaction was, oh no, like, come on, we could get, give us this in the semifinals. I'd honestly rather take on any other team. I'd literally rather take on Man City, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Dortmund, anybody else but Bayern Munich, because they are the favorites to win this competition. And I would hate to see PSG get down in the quarterfinals. But then I really started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, but now we got Bayern Munich this early. We, eventually, if we wanted to win this whole thing, we'd have to play them. Why not now? Why not prove to people that we are truly a big club? This would do it. In my opinion, we beat Bayern Munich here, and it's official. PSG is one of the big clubs in the world. They will be known that forever, in my opinion. Because, of course, if they win that game, if they win the tie, I don't see why they wouldn't be considered favorites. Maybe Man City would still be considered over them, and that would be a heck of a tie as well. Which, by the way, they're in the same bracket as PSG and Bayern Munich. They're in the same bracket as Man City and Dortmund. That is by far the best bracket. It's the winners bracket, and then you got the consolation bracket down there with Real Madrid, Liverpool, Porto and Chelsea. It's night and day in my opinion, but whatever. I'm excited to see that PSG Bayern Munich tie. I think it's going to be, fireworks. You're going to get Lewandowski, Müller, Gnabry, Sane, Kimmich, Mbappe, Neymar, Keane, Di Maria, Navas, Neuer. Come on. It's just going to be stars up and down the rosters. And I can't wait. I can't wait for it. And my friend's a Bayern Munich fan, so we're going to be FaceTiming and talking a lot of garbage to each other, but it's going to be fun, as Champions League always is. So, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Well, I'm not ending this thing. I don't know why I made it sound like I'm ending this thing. But anyways, this is going to be the end of the segment. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the Premier League and the FA Cup right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Champions League round of 16. We talked about the games that happened this past week. And then of course we went over the quarterfinal draws that have already been shown. So now we're going to be talking about the Champions League, about the Premier League, and we're going to talk about the FA Cup as well. The way I want to start this off, I want to begin with the Premier League. There was only a couple games that have been played since the last time I spoke to you guys about this league. And then after that, I want to go into the FA Cup, as that is the most exciting. So if you guys want to listen to that, you're going to have to hold on real quick, or I guess you can just skip forward to that part. But regardless, we're going to talk about the Premier League. Early on this weekend, we had some interesting games, at least games that had to do with the relegation battles. We had Leeds United versus Fulham, and then we had Brighton versus Newcastle. And Leeds United took care of business, defeated Fulham 2-1. And after a very competitive first half, Leeds United was able to pull ahead with a Raphinha 58th minute goal. Raphinha, as you guys all know, is the prospect that is being eyed by Liverpool. And he plays very well. He's very creative. He's got a lot of great skills inside the box, and I'm sure he would be able to help them in a number of ways, as he showed what he could do for Leeds United in this game. And for Fulham, they have been able to play much better of late, but they've now rattled off 3 losses in their last 4 games, and it's been a bit of a struggle. And they now are in 18th place with 26 points. 2 points behind Newcastle, 6 points behind Brighton, as Brighton has now won 2 in a row and are starting to create a little bit of that distance. And for me, it kind of feels like that's about right, because Brighton haven't been a terrible team. They've been decent defensively, average offensively. They have the best goal differential of any team from 12 and under. And they've lost a lot of close games, and it's been a little bit of a struggle for Brighton overall this season. I feel like maybe when I said Brighton were going to be the surprise of the year, maybe I'm a year too short. Maybe it's going to be next year. Maybe when they have finally figured it out, maybe they add a few more pieces to this team that's actually been not that bad. They haven't been able to have those wins where it's like, oh, it's hanging in the balance and they get the win, but they still hang in most of the games. And that's what you like to see as, a fan of Brighton. So you see that Leeds United defeated this one, and then Brighton took care of business versus Newcastle. And it started with a Trossard goal in the extra time of the first half. And then Danny Welbeck and Neil Maupay scored in the second half to make it 3-0 for Brighton. And they took care of business, against a team that was right there next to them in the standings. They only had a 1-point lead on them entering this game. So, anything could have happened here. Brighton could have lost and, been right next to Fulham in this relegation battle. But now they created a 6-point difference with about 9 games left to go. And they have a good chance to stay in the league. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I'm impressed with what Fulham have been able to do with such little on their roster. Even though I do like, what was this guy's name? Loftus-Cheek. I really love what Loftus-Cheek brings them. Alphonse Areola has been a great goalkeeper between the sticks. And even, Alexander Mitrovic has been very solid for them up top. But I just feel like their talent overall was worse entering the season. They've obviously, brought in a couple players and have really made this team, a lot better going in. But they're still a piece away from really contending in this Premier League. And I don't mean contending as in obviously getting up top to, top of the table. I mean staying in it consistently. Because, right now they're 18th and they're right there on the precipice. They did have, like I said, a good couple of games in a row where, I believe it was 8 away games where they hadn't lost the game. So that's, extremely impressive from Fulham. And but they, didn't have enough this week. And next we had Tottenham taking on Aston Villa. Those were the games that happened on Sunday. And I was actually very impressed with the way Tottenham played. You didn't have the dominant performance that you would expect from a Tottenham Hotspurs, but Aston Villa are no slouches. They have a very solid team. I love Ming in that back line. Martinez has been a heck of a goalkeeper between the sticks for Aston Villa this season. And then you got, a very solid team. The only thing is that Aston Villa didn't have Jack Grealish once again in this game. They did have Sang-Song, who they brought in the winter transfer. Ollie Watkins has been a very solid player for them. Luis in the midfield and McGinn have been pretty solid there as well. Traore, Trezeguet. They have some solid pieces, but they don't have a player that can just create for himself and kind of just get players going also. So that's what they're missing heavily with Jack Grealish not there. And it's gonna be a rough stretch for them until they get their star man back, because he is the guy that unlocks everything for their offense. And you look at their last couple games, they've got 2 draws and 2 losses in their last 4 games. They just have not been able to have that X factor to really get any closer than where they're at right now. They're currently 10th. And with this win for Tottenham, they've now got 4 wins in their last 5 games with a loss mixed in there. And that's got them only 1 point behind West Ham for that 5th and final spot for a European competition. Obviously, they're eyeing, one of the top 4. They're only 3 points out of that spot, with Chelsea having 51. But yeah, they need to continue to play with this kind of intensity. You have Harry Kane playing well. Obviously, Song, I believe he's injured, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I believe he is injured. But, they didn't get much from Gareth Bale as they were expecting. Dembele and Hojbjerg have been very solid in that midfield. Carlos Vinicius has been a very decent player for them. Not going to lie, he was mainly being used for cup matches. But, he gets this start here in a Premier League game against Aston Villa, which is, like I said, it's not, an easy matchup. And they were able to, win the game. And you got to take it for what it's worth. 3 points is 3 points, and they're just, that much closer to trying to get a top 4 spot in the Premier League. And then lastly, we had probably the most exciting game or easily the most exciting game this weekend. You had West Ham versus Arsenal. West Ham, like we've talked about time and time again, being, one of the surprises of the season by far, being top 5 right now. Most people were expecting them to be a mid-level squad, and for them to be competing like this, and half the season they were competing like this without Jesse Lingard. But Jesse Lingard, the player that they loaned for early on this season, has added a different dimension to this attack and has made them even more dangerous. The difference is, and they should have gotten these 3 points against Arsenal, but mistakes in the back cost them dearly. I mean, that first half was dominant by West Ham. 2 goals early on in the game, one by Jesse Lingard, another by Jared Bowen in the 15th and 17th minute. But then Thomas Soucek, which has been one of their best scorers from the midfield position, scores in the 32nd to make it 3-0 West Ham. So obviously at this point, Arsenal, it looks like it's going to be another one of those games. Even though Arsenal, most of those scores were against, I wouldn't say against the run of play, but it kind of felt 50-50. And West Ham were just able to outplay Arsenal. But for some reason, I don't understand what it is with Arsenal that when they go down, when they, have their backs against the wall, they start playing better. And it's happened so many times as they go into the halftime and they come out and look like a completely different team. It's happened so many times this season. And once again, it's happened here where they were getting more opportunities. Even early on, like late in that first half, they were getting more opportunities. Were consistently pressuring in that final third of West Ham and were making them make difficult decisions. And it ended up being, resulting in 2 own goals for West Ham, which allowed Arsenal to get back into this game, making it 3-2. Well, the first own goal was in the first half. Thomas Soucek literally erased his goal in the 32nd minute with a 38th minute own goal. Obviously, that was just absolutely terrible. But then after that, they go into halftime up 3-1. Still, you got a very comfortable lead. You can't rest on your laurels. You need to continue to attack, be on top of your game. But the first score of the second half was once again an own goal for West Ham, but this time by Craig Dawson, a 61st minute own goal that gets Arsenal even more momentum. They had momentum going into halftime, even though, yes, 3-1 lead for West Ham certainly feels good, but the way that first half ended, you can kind of feel that the momentum was heading in Arsenal's direction. So with Craig Dawson then getting that own goal to make it 3-2, anything was possible. Obviously Arsenal have the talent to score 1 goal, and they did just that with Alexander Lacazette, who has been starting in place of Emerick Aubameyang, because I believe it was detrimental conduct to the team that he was, put on the bench or something, came through and scored the game-tying goal in the 82nd minute, and it was a heck of a goal, man. I mean, I love Lacazette with the, just because of the way he works. His work rate is extremely high, and I love strikers like that. Guys like Edison Cavani, Lukaku, like those guys work super hard to get to where they need to be in order to score the goals. And Lacazette's one of them, and he did it for Arsenal, scoring that game-tying goal, giving them at least a point. And this is a tough tie for West Ham because they started this game out so well. And for them to get a tie there, and with Tottenham, Liverpool getting wins, their grip on that, and one of those top 5 spots is starting to loosen up. And I'm not sure, I've heard this, on multiple, like when I'm watching the games, that West Ham has never made it to a European competition. Maybe that's completely wrong. Maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe it's like it hasn't made it to a European competition in, so years. But when I heard that, I really couldn't believe it, because West Ham haven't been, great since I've been they haven't even been that good since I've been a soccer fan. But I knew about West Ham because they were such, a historic club, a club that's always in the in the Premier League, and it just kind of baffled my mind that they never made top 5. They haven't been in European competition. I hope that ends this season. I'm always a fan of the underdog, but we'll just have to wait and see if they can hold on, because they got some tough teams behind them, and it's going to be interesting to see how this ends going down the stretch. I mean, Tottenham are starting to figure it out. Liverpool are still a mess, in my opinion. Everton have lost 2 straight, so anything is possible, but they have got to play a bit better than they have shown over their past 4 games. So that's going to wrap it up for the Premier League. So now let's move on to the FA Cup, where we're going to quickly talk about each of these games that have gone down in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. And then we're going to talk also a little, just quickly about the semifinal draw. So first, let's talk about Bournemouth, versus Southampton. And Southampton have been very troubling in the Premier League. It's been, a very difficult season for them after starting so well, looking like one of the, having a very solid season. They kind of struggled. And this FA Cup can certainly be a way for them to kind of right the wrongs this season. And this is a big-time step in that direction, as they looked very strong versus Bournemouth, defeating them 3-0. They got 2 goals in the first half, one from Moussa Djenepo in the 37th minute, and a second by Nathan Redmond in extra time. So they obviously had the momentum heading into halftime, and they did not quit. They continue to push. They continue to pressure Bournemouth, and they were able to score the first goal of the second half in the 59th minute, a brace for Nathan Redmond, and that was all she wrote for them, because Bournemouth pretty much had no answers for them. I mean, they did get 5 shots on target, which is the same amount that Southampton did, but they only had 7 shots. They were not able to consistently apply pressure on Southampton, which is what you need to do on them. Their offense has not been great. It's been on and off for most of the season. And when they're clicking like this on offense, you need to attack them on that defensive end, where they struggle a bit this season. So you need to, just be a lot more consistent with your shots. Even though 5 for 7 is great, you just got to have more of them. And they just did not pressure Southampton enough. So you get Bournemouth, you get Southampton moving on to the semi-final. Next, we have Man City versus Everton. And regardless, what kind of talent Everton has, and I was very high on Everton, for most of the season. Obviously, they're dealing with a lot of injuries, and that hurts. But what Ilkay Gundogan and De Bruyne, it's just crazy how they scored in the Champions League, and now they score in the FA Cup for Man City, kind of making it look easy. And it's funny how in Champions League, it happened like in the beginning of that game against Borussia Mönchengladbach. And now for the FA Cup, they scored pretty much at the end of the game. Ilkay Gundogan scored in the 84th minute. De Bruyne scored in the 90th to pretty much close this game out. And once again, it is the pressure, the defense that really won Man City this game. Because most of the time, with Man City scoring this late in the game, it usually be resulting in a comeback. They're down 1-0, maybe 2-0. But with the defense being as strong as it has been, they only allow 25% possession for Everton. 2 shots on target of 10 shots. So they made it extremely difficult for them to get anything resembling of a decent threat to goal. And I feel like that's always going to be the number one thing when you talk about Man City. Just how strong they are defensively and how dominant they are on that end. Because as long as they're playing like that, in my opinion, nobody can beat them. Maybe, the best teams in the world can have a chance at beating them. But even then, it's not guaranteed. Because this team is playing at another level. And that is what you saw. I mean, offensively, it hasn't been easy for them. It really hasn't. Raheem Sterling is not the same, even though he's still getting numbers. I just don't feel to have that same feel from Raheem Sterling that I've had in previous seasons. Gundogan has really been that guy that has stepped up and been consistently good for them since, I believe it was like January. He has just been killing it since then. Phil Foden gives you some solid stuff, but in terms of scoring, it's been Gundogan, it's been I guess you can say Raheem Sterling in some situations. The center backs pairing has been absolutely killing it. And then De Bruyne. I mean, De Bruyne has got two. I don't know when the last time De Bruyne had 2 goals in 1 goal in back-to-back games. I really can't remember that, because he does not do that on a regular basis. He's always trying to get players involved, but this time around he was able to get goals for himself. So big props for him. And again, just another game for Man City. Next, let's go to Leicester City versus Man United, where Leicester City took care of business against Man United. This was a very exciting match. You had the 3rd team in the Premier League in Leicester City versus the 2nd team in Man United, and you had Leicester City and their youngins kind of coming through and really taking this game from Man United. You look at the stats, and I mean, it was pretty even in possession and even in the shots. But I mean, when you consider the fact that this game ended 3-1 Leicester City, Iheanacho scored a brace, one in the 24th minute, another in the 78th. Yuri Tillemans once again doing his thing, getting a goal in the 52nd minute to really put this game, on. Well, I guess it was Iheanacho's goal that put it on ice to make it 3-1 with just about 15 minutes to go. Mason Greenwood got a goal, which, it has not been the case for a lot of this season. He's been struggling as he's going through those slumps that, a young player like himself goes through. But, yeah, Man United get pretty much run out of this game, even though, like I said, it was a bit back and forth, but Leicester City just took more advantage of those opportunities that they had. And that's why Leicester City is moving on to the next round. And then, lastly, we got Chelsea versus Sheffield United. I've always said this was, a nice little, run for Sheffield United to kind of like make light of the season that they've been having in the Premier League. But it ends here in the quarterfinals, and I mean, it's still a very solid run. But and to lose to a team like Chelsea is nothing to kind of hang your or lower your head on. It was even though they weren't that competitive. I mean, possession-wise, Chelsea pretty much dominated, but they didn't allow Chelsea to just do whatever they wanted on the defensive end, or I should say on the attacking end. And Chelsea did score 2 goals, an own goal in the 24th minute, and then late in the game, they got a goal from Hakim Ziyech to kind of just put it on ice, just end it. But still, Sheffield United stayed competitive, made sure that Chelsea could not do whatever they wanted. They didn't score an open play goal until literally the last minutes of the game. So you still got to give a little bit of credit to Sheffield United to stay within themselves, not allow Chelsea to really run rampant in this game after giving up an own goal so early in the game, because that happens, man. When a team like Sheffield United, who has played so poor this season, gives up an own goal early on in this competition, they kind of hang their heads, and they didn't do that. They continued to fight and at least made this a tough game for Chelsea, one that they had to earn. But yes, in the end, Chelsea do get this win and move on to the next round. And now quickly, let's talk about those draws, as we have Chelsea going up against Man City. Again, I do not think this is going to be any sort of challenge here. I think Man City are going to absolutely destroy Chelsea. I do think when I mean destroy, I don't mean be in terms of score, because Chelsea has been a very solid defensive team of late. But I don't think Man City are going to have any trouble here. I'm looking at a 2-0 score, maybe even 1-0 score, but a 1-0 score where there is really no threat to an equalizer from Chelsea. I just don't see it, because Man City's defense has been, in my opinion, the best in the entire world, and they're going to show that in this semifinal match. And then for Leicester City versus Southampton, maybe there can possibly be an upset here. Southampton have the ability in terms, with all their attacking players, Takumi Minamino, Danny Ings, Theo Walcott, Che Adams, James Ward-Prowse. They got players that can score goals. So I feel like Southampton is one of those sleeper teams that can absolutely upset Leicester City. But I'd be hard-pressed to say that, yes, Leicester City are going to lose this game. But like I said, Southampton, it's all about how their defense plays. I'm a fan of Vestergaard and Jan Bednarik, but sometimes they sleep a little bit. It's just facts. But if they can, be on top of their game, if all these star attackers play for Southampton, then I don't see why Leicester City can't be upset here. So this is going to be an exciting semifinal match. I can't wait to get into it. But this is going to be mid-April, so we won't be talking about this for some time now. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the other top 5 leagues. We'll probably get into some of the cup matches as well right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Premier League, got into the FA Cup, as we are now in the semifinals. And now we're going to be talking about the Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, and Ligue 1, as we are getting near to the end of the season here. We got only 7 matches to go for pretty much all the leagues. And all these title races are really heating up. I am very excited to see how they're going to finish. So let's get started. We're going to start with the Bundesliga, and we got a lot of interesting games that happen here. I mean, the one thing I wanted was for RB Leipzig to keep pace with Bayern Munich. Because I do not want Bayern Munich to just continue to just run away with the Bundesliga. That has been a continuous trend for so many years. There was one year that Borussia Dortmund were able to get it, but that was an outlier. Same thing as PSG, losing to Monaco back when Mbappe was on the team. But RB Leipzig were able to hold on. They were able to win 1-0 versus Arminia. Got a goal from Marcel Sabitzer in the 46th minute to give themselves a 1-0 win. And this was a very important win for them, as they dominated this game. They needed to get 3 points here. They absolutely dominated Arminia. There was no threat for a goal from Arminia's side. It was just whether RB Leipzig were going to be able to put it together for a full run to be able to score a goal against Arminia. They had 20 shots to 7 shots. It was 20 shots for RB Leipzig, 7 for Arminia. No shots on target for Arminia. They didn't get a single shot on target and only had 18% possession, and they only completed 55% of their passes. When you compare that to RB Leipzig's 8 shots on target, 82% possession, 90% pass accuracy, it's night and day. And if RB Leipzig would have had a draw here, this would be probably the worst draw of the entire season. Not only because of just the way that the game went, but because of the situation that they're in and what this would mean for their standing in the tables. However, with this win, they continue to keep pace with Bayern Munich, because with this, if they would have drawn this game, they would have been, 6 points away from Bayern Munich with, those 6-7 games left to go, there'd be no way they'd be able to catch up. But they are still only 4 points away. And from the last time I remember, I thought they were only, 2 points away. But they did have a draw last week against Eintracht Frankfurt. I remember talking about it. And that was that was a tough loss, or I guess a tough draw. But in the end, it still kind of feels like a loss because now they're no longer like right behind Bayern. Like Bayern can still lose a game. Like now that April 3rd game, which is the next game that's coming up for RB Leipzig, kind of has, obviously it's still super important, but it's not like if RB Leipzig can win this game, they're now ahead of Bayern Munich. Then they would then just be a point behind them. And that obviously changes a lot of things because now they need more help from the other teams to kind of, get at least a draw against Bayern Munich. And that's tough to do, as we saw this week. Bayern Munich were down a man for about, I would say, 80 minutes. And they were still able to dominate Stuttgart 4-0. Man disadvantage against a team that's been mid-table for most of the season. They've even been on a pretty solid run. They've won 3 of their last 4 games with a draw mixed in there. This has been a pretty solid team. And they get absolutely obliterated by Bayern Munich with a man disadvantage. It just feels unfair with what Bayern have been able to do, throughout this run that they have been on. They transitioned from those years from Robben and Frank Ribéry perfectly, because Lewandowski has been able to, kind of hold that torch and lead them the rest of the way. Obviously, Thomas Müeller's huge. They've been able to add younger, better wingers, and it's crazy, man. And it makes sense why I'm feeling so, just a little bit scared about that Champions League draw with PSG, but it's just, man, it's just so impressive what Bayern can do night in, night out against pretty much any Bundesliga team. I mean, yes, any team is going to have a bad game here and there, but man, those games are so far in between for Bayern Munich. Like AC Milan seemed like such a strong team this year, a team that looked destined to win the Serie A title, but they eventually hit a wall and went I would say 6 games where they had lost 2 or 3. That doesn't happen to Bayern Munich, ever. Now, you look at some of the other teams around the Bundesliga, and some just couldn't, just can't keep pace. You got Dortmund that once again need to be saved by Erling Haaland with first, he scored the opening goal in the 3rd minute. The guy looks like an absolute stud, superstar. But then, just the team overall of Dortmund just feels like it's lacking something. And Köln didn't have a good game. They only had 2 shots on target, and those 2 just so happened to go past the goalkeeper to score and give Köln a lead going in late into the second half. And it took Erling Haaland once again to do more heroics and give Dortmund at least a draw. You could tell by the way he left that game, he was upset, and deservedly so. I mean, the guy is practically carrying this Borussia Dortmund team, and there's really no one there. Jadon Sancho has taken a huge step down. He no longer has that, I'm not saying he's not going to be a stud in this game, but he no longer has that superstar, feel to him when he's playing. Erling Haaland has taken strides above what we saw last season. Jadon Sancho has not. That's just plain facts. And that's why, or at least that's one of the reasons why Borussia Dortmund are, they're 5th in the league? Yeah, they're 5th. 4 points behind Frankfurt. 8 points behind Wolfsburg for 3rd. And forget about RB Leipzig and Bayern Munich. They're 14 behind Bayern Munich. 14 behind RB Leipzig and 18 points behind Bayern Munich. That's just, they have been worlds below the standard that has been needed to compete in this Bundesliga, for this Bundesliga title. So it's been a very poor season from them, and yeah, this game is just another example of what we have seen from them week in and week out. Same thing from Bayer Leverkusen. They lose 3-0 to Hertha Berlin, a team that has been practically battling relegation for this entire season. And once again, you get a stretch from Bayer Leverkusen where they lose 3 of their last 4 games. That has happened at least 3 or 4 times since, because they were one of the teams that were battling with Bayern Munich in the, kind of like towards the mid or early parts of the season. And you were thinking, okay, Bayer Leverkusen, they've kind of figured it all out. Their defense has looked solid. Their offense has been consistently good. But then they hit a wall. And then, kind of looked like they got back on track. And then they hit another wall. And now they are hitting probably their 4th wall of the season with just poor play being attached to it. And I just don't understand why they can't consistently get it together. Like, I just don't understand. And that is why they are on the outside of the European competition looking in. If it ends today, they are not in the European competition next season. They don't even make it Europa League. So they got to get their act together if they want to play some Europe next season. And that's obviously going to have a lot to do with who they can hold on to. Like, no doubt about it. Let's see. Next, we got Eintracht Frankfurt taking care of business versus Union Berlin. Andre Silva, probably the second best striker in the Bundesliga, gets 2 goals in the first half. They were up 4-2 going into halftime. And then Timothy Chandler in extra time of the second half was able to make it 5-2 and just kind of like take care of this game. But Frankfurt it wasn't a dominant game from them though. Even though they obviously got a lot of goals, they allowed Union Berlin to kind of do what they wanted in that attacking end. Union Berlin had 25 shots in this game. Like, you look at the stats, like you would think it would be the other way around with the way Frankfurt were scoring. But Frankfurt only had 9 shots, 5 shots on target. All of those shots were able to go in, even though one of their goals was an own goal by Robert Andrich of Union Berlin. So they did get a bit of help there. But really, this game was one-sided after this. I would guess that you could say after the second half. Because even though Frankfurt were very aggressive in that first half, and especially in that stretch where after that own goal in the 35th minute, they got a goal in the 39th from Kostic, and then a 41st minute goal from Andre Silva to really kind of take Union Berlin out of this game. But Union Berlin still fought. So, Frankfurt win this game and kind of like hold on to one of those Champions League spots as Dortmund falter. And this was a big win for Frankfurt as they had lost, they had drawn 2 and lost 1 of their last 3 games. So they've been in a little bit of a struggle, but they've really turned it around. So that's going to wrap it up for the Bundesliga. I want to move on to Serie A, talk about the other leagues that aren't getting much love from me right now. Let's see. We got Napoli taking on Roma. Big game for them there. And they were able to take care of business, get a 2-0 win over Roma. And that was probably one of the biggest games left in the season for both Napoli and Roma, as those two are battling for one of those final European spots. And they were tied going into this game. They were both tied at 50. And Napoli had been the team that had been playing better. Roma has kind of hitting a bit of a wall going into this game. And the biggest difference that Roma have not been able to consistently defend. Their offense has been solid. It hasn't been at that same level as the other top 5 teams in this league, but it's still been pretty solid. They still have 51 goals scored in 28 games. That's still really good. But the thing is, they do not have anywhere near the defensive potential that any of those other teams have. It's not even close. And in this game, it was shown. Napoli absolutely dominated. They had 11 shots, 5 on target. The possession was pretty even, but you can tell that the way Napoli were playing, it was a pretty one-sided affair. Dries Mertens took care of business in that first half, scoring a brace. First goal in the 27th minute, second in the 34th. And that early onslaught was enough to give Napoli that 2-0 lead and a big 3 points. Milan was able to take care of business, get a 3-2 win over Fiorentina. Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored early on in the 9th minute, giving Milan that lead. But then Eric Pulgar in the 17th minute was able to give Fiorentina that equalizer. And Fiorentina were even able to get the lead on a Frank Ribéry goal. So they put on the pressure on AC Milan, who have not been playing well of late. They lost their last game, kind of giving up a lot of ground to Inter Milan, but they answered. And that's kind of like the biggest thing. When AC Milan gets punched in the mouth, they've rarely gotten back up and answered right back. And they did that in this game. Brahim Diaz in the 57th, literally 6 minutes after that Ribery goal, equalized. And then Kahanoglu in the 72nd minute scored that game winner. So a big answer from AC Milan. However, it was not enough to really get anywhere close to Inter Milan. But I'm actually looking here. I don't see Inter Milan. Did Inter Milan play this week? I do not think Inter Milan played this week. I do not know why. But we will see what that reason is for. Let's see if I find them a little bit back. But no, I saw that they took on Torino and they took care of business there. But regardless, Inter Milan have not played this week. Maybe it's just not showing it for me here. But a big loss that we saw here by one of the giants of Serie A football is Juventus, losing to Benevento 1-0. Not the kind of answer that you wanted to see them have after getting knocked out of the Champions League. Though they did have a game before this, and they did answer pretty well. But this is just another sign of their inconsistencies, man. This is not a dominant team by any means. Their offense takes too much to really get going. I'm a fan of Chiesa. Kulusevski, honestly, in my opinion, the jury's out on him. I do not. I was excited early on, but then now it just kind of feels like he doesn't, have that spark that you kind of wanted. And Ronaldo, I really don't know. I really don't know what to say about him. I mean, he still scores goals, but he doesn't impact winning the way he used to. So big time loss for Juventus. They drop even further. They're still third, but they're tied with Atalanta for that third place spot. Even though they do have a game in hand, they needed to get wins here. After winning 3 in a row, they needed to continue to win and kind of put pressure on AC Milan or Inter Milan. Even though I still think there was no chance. They would have needed Inter Milan to lose games, which was not going to be happening because they're playing on another level. But yeah, this was a tough loss for Juventus. And then Atalanta, they took care of business. They got a 2-0 win over Verona, who have been a very solid team this season. They've been mid-table, although they've hit some rough patches here and there. They've been a solid team. They've been one of the better defensive teams this season, and they were dominated by Atalanta, just plain and simple. Only had 3 shots in this game, 1 on target, and you had Malinovsky score a penalty, Duvan Zapata score in the 42nd minute to really take care of business here, and Atalanta get the 3 points. So let's move on now to La Liga, where it looks like things are getting closer and closer by the minute. I mean, Atletico Madrid no longer have a game in hand, and they still got 4-point lead. They got a 4-point lead on Barcelona, 6-point lead on Real Madrid. Sevilla has hit a bit of a wall. They had lost 2 and drawn 1 in their last 5 games. So, they're kind of out of that title race contention, but it's still up. Anybody can win it. I mean, Barcelona are continuing to dominate in La Liga. They just had, what was it? I think it was like a 6-1 win. Yeah, they just defeated Real Sociedad 6-1. They got a brace from Serginho Dest. Oh my God, I haven't seen this game. I need to see these highlights. Are you kidding me? The American fullback got a brace, his first brace for Barcelona. I need to see these highlights. I'll do it after the show. But you got a goal from Antoine Griezmann, a goal from Ousmane Dembele, and you got a brace from Lionel Messi. So everybody got into the scoring column, and Real Sociedad just had no answers. They got a consolation goal late in the game in the 77th minute, but that was already after Barcelona had been up 5-0. So Barcelona just continued to dominate, while Atletico Madrid were just able to squeak by Alaves with a goal from Luis Suarez in the 54th minute. Regardless, a win's a win. It doesn't matter whether you beat them 6-1 or if you beat them 1-0. If you have more points than the other team, that is what matters. And at the moment, Atletico Madrid are 4 points ahead of Barcelona with, I believe it's like 10 games to go, or maybe a little less than that, maybe like 8 or 9. But still, this end to the season is going to be extremely exciting to watch. And so, what was the other team? How did Real Madrid do? Real Madrid were able to take care of business as well, to get a 3-1 win over Celta Vigo. You got a brace from Karim Benzema, as he has been in such good form of late. Marco Asensio picks up a goal late as well in the 94th minute. And this was after Celta Vigo had at least drawn it a little closer with a 40th minute goal in the first half to make it 2-1 heading into the second half. And Real Madrid were able to pretty much, handle their business, just keep it close, make sure that Celta Vigo didn't get many opportunities, which, they only had 8 shots, 3 on target. It's not like Real Madrid had that many more efficient looks. They only had 4 shots on target, but they were efficient with them. They did get 3 of those 4 to go past the goalkeeper, and that's what matters. Real Madrid win the game and get all 3 points. Next, Sevilla dropping more points, getting a 1-1 draw against Valladolid, and that was a very, very lucky draw at that, as Valladolid had the lead going into the half with a penalty in the 44th minute, and it took Sevilla all the way to the extra time, almost the last minutes of the game, to score the equalizer, as Yassine Bono in the 94th minute scores the equalizer for Sevilla and saves at least a point for them. Not that, honestly, at this point, not that it really matters, even though, of course, any point counts, especially, when you only have a few games left to go, you want to make sure you secure one of those Champions League spots. But I feel like it's just a given at this point. After losing 2 straight, Sevilla have been able to kind of right their wrongs, get 2 wins and now a draw in their last 3 games. Even though they are out of contention for that title spot, they still, there's a 10-point gap between them and Real Sociedad for that final 4th spot. So they don't want to risk any sort of, just stumble in the standings and allow Real Sociedad to really capture that Champions League, final spot. So as long as Sevilla continue to play the way they have been playing, they will be in the Champions League next season. And last, let's go to Liga, as things are just continuously changing in the standings. You have PSG now at the top of the Liga table, as they were able to defeat, Lyon, one of the teams that have been, on their tails for most of the season. And Lille dropped a huge game against Nimes, a game that you would expect them pretty much 9 out of 10 to win. This just so happened to be that 10th game. And Nimes, who have been in relegation battle for most of the season, got a very crucial win. They're now tied with Lorient for 17th. They are currently in that relegation playoff spot now, as they were before this game in 19th place. So a huge, huge game for Nimes, and a poor effort from Lille. They had the same amount of shots on target, with Lille having 5 more shots, and the possession was heavily in Lille's favor, so you would have expected them to come through with a win here, but it just did not happen. And with PSG defeating Lyon 4-2, a brace from Kylian Mbappe, who, he is just playing on another level right now. This kid is scoring every single game he's out there. And then you got to go from Danilo Pereira and Angel Di Maria to kind of help him out, get that 4-2 win. Lyon were able to score 2 late goals to kind of make it a little interesting, but with that win and the loss for Lille, PSG is now at the top of the standings with the goal differential heavily in their favor. They got a plus 46 goal differential, while Lille have a plus 31. So Lille need to hope that they can, kind of get over PSG in terms of points in order to win this Ligue 1 title. But it's still close. Even Lyon are only 3 points behind Lille and PSG. And Monaco, even them, they're only 4 points behind Lille and PSG. So any sort of slip up from either of these two teams, and Monaco or Lyon go on a run, and any team can be at the top of the standings. That's what I'm loving about this season. Anything can happen, and I just love it. Keep it coming. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 Leicester City players this season.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the other top 5 leagues. We discussed Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, Liga. You guys know how I do it here in this show. We talked about all the games that have happened this past weekend, and then we discussed the tables as those title races are getting closer and closer with the games, almost done. It's crazy. The season's almost over, and there are still so many title races going on. So if you guys want to check that out, please go and do so. But now we're going to be talking about the top 10 Leicester City players this season. Leicester City, in my opinion, have been one of the most underrated teams this year with or even like underappreciated, because the amount of injuries they had to deal with this season, with guys like Ricardo Pereira like barely being able to play because he's having trouble getting back from injury. Wilfred Nandidi coming back a little bit earlier and being able to have a big-time impact on this team, but still, being out for a lot of this season, for almost, I wouldn't say half, but definitely a good chunk, almost half. And they're still consistently third in the league. It's just so impressive to me, and I can't wait to get into these 10 players, because all 10 of these players have had huge impacts on this team's success this season, and are the reasons that they are in a Champions League spot. So let's just get started. At number 10, I got James Justin, the fullback, the England fullback. The kid has been having such such a great season. I believe this is his debut season in the Premier League, and he has not looked, overwhelmed. Sure, he's not, like dominating games. He's got 3 goals, 1 assist, but he's a solid passer, nearly 80%. Pass completion of his about 54 passes a game. He gets some, he can find players like, in good positions. He's got about 0.8 key passes per game, and he's very solid on the defensive end as well. So, with 1.2 tackles won, 2.3 blocks a game, 1.1 interceptions, and even 2.8 clearances, which is some of the best numbers on the team. You put that all together along with his pace, his technical skills, and honestly, his ability to score as well. And you got a very complete fullback who is still pretty young. He's just turned 23 years old, so he's still got room to grow. This is his first year in the Premier League, and he has not looked, out of place. And I think that is the biggest thing. It took him some time to kind of get into a rhythm, but once he found it, he was one of the best fullbacks in the league, in my opinion. Obviously there's still a lot. He would certainly make my maybe top 7 in terms of fullbacks in the Premier League. And for a young kid like this who just made it, or I guess he was in the Premier League last season. I didn't know that. He was there 1 year, but he barely played. He got only 13 appearances. This year he's gotten much more appearances in both domestic league and domestic cup competitions, and he has played a huge part to their success. So I feel you got a great all-around fullback there that can do multiple things, and he's going to be dangerous in the future if he just continues to get time. Number 9, I have Kelechi Iheanacho, the kind of like the backup striker for this Leicester City team, but there have been times when he's had to kind of go into that starting role because Jamie Vardy is certainly getting up there in age. He's 34 years old, and he can't play every game. It's not possible. He's going to pick up an injury here and there, especially with this kind of grueling season. Iheanacho was even more important because, I mean, you got almost 3 games a week type schedules, and it's taxing. It's taxing on a team. And so to have a striker that that has great pace, is intelligent in terms of getting to the right spots when he needs to, kind of open up a passing lane for a teammate. And he's also shown the ability to dish the ball as well. I mean, he's got 12 goals and 4 assists this season. He's got an 81.1 pass completion percentage, 0.9 key passes a game. He can dribble it a bit as well. But you're not gonna ask him to do that. He's more your target man, a guy that can score goals for you on a regular basis. I mean, that hat trick he had against Sheffield United kind of showed you everything that he's got in his bag. The first goal was an easy tap in, but that he doesn't get that easy tap in if it's not for his ability to get in the right position. The second goal was a beautiful pass from Jamie Vardy, but once again, if he's not in that position, if he's not running and getting that and has that pace to get into that spot, he doesn't get that goal. But then, of course, the last one from way outside, he shows you that he can also score goals and create for himself. So an excellent backup striker to have, and he's young as well. He's only 24 years of age, so he's got room to grow, and they have a good one, man. I mean, I'm not going to go ahead and say that he can possibly be like a replacement for Jamie Vardy once he gets too old to play regularly, but he's certainly an option, no doubt about it. And that's why he comes in at number 9. At number 8, I have Johnny Evans, the center back. Johnny Evans has been a rock for Leicester City's defense for a long time now. I'm actually going to go and look to see how many years he's actually played with the team. The Northern Ireland defender has been very strong. I mean, for the past 3 seasons, he has been a rock for this defense. And I mean, and the crazy thing is, it's not his athleticism, because he is getting up there in age. He's about 33 years old right now. So he doesn't have much athleticism left, and he wasn't even that athletic earlier in his career. He was more, it was his IQ, his ability to get into the right position to really halt counterattacks and stop dribblers. He rarely gets beat off the dribble, and he's been so important in keeping this Leicester City team stable in that back line. Obviously, he's gotten help from a younger defender that you're going to see a little bit later on this list, maybe right around the corner. But still, Johnny Evans is the anchor of that back line. 5.3 clearances, 1.4 interceptions. He's very solid with the ball. 86.9 pass completion percentage of about 61 passes a game, and he's pretty solid in the air as well. 3.1 aerial duels, 1 per game. He's got the most completed aerial duels on the team and is a very important player to this team's success. 7th, we have the younger defender that I was talking about, Wesley Fofana. I mean, what an acquisition this was. I believe they picked up Wesley Fofana in the winter transfer, and this was, as good as it gets. It is they got him in the winter transfer. He wasn't playing much for Saint Etienne at Liga. I do not know why. Not sure if he was injured or whatnot, but he has made a huge impact for Leicester City. He is just as smart in terms of getting into the right positions. He's also pretty solid with the ball at his feet. He has an 86.6 pass completion percentage of about 61 passes, but he's also super athletic. He's like a more athletic Johnny Evans. He gets clearances. He got 4.5 clearances per game, 3.1 aerial duels. He puts his body on the line, 1.7 blocks a game, 1.6 interceptions, 1.3 tackles, 1. He does it all on that defensive end and has become probably the most important person on that back line to kind of keep things steady. I mean, once Johnny Evans is gone, you know Wesley Fofana is going to be the guy to really lead that back line on that defensive end. He's going to be extremely important. So, I mean, I knew when he came in, he was eventually going to be, a regular for them, especially since they didn't have many options. And it didn't take very long. It really didn't. And the fact that he's only 20 years of age just shows the kind of potential that this kid really has. At number 6, we have, of course, the captain, the leader, Kasper Schmeichel, the goalkeeper that has been, near the top of goalkeepers list for a long time now, and he continues to lead the way for Leicester City. He's not having one of those, all-time seasons, one of those seasons that you expect from a Kasper Schmeichel, but it's still not a poor season at all. He's got a 71.4 save percentage. Obviously not, and honestly, it's not bad when you consider his career averages, which is 72.9. That's just underneath that. When you consider the fact that he's 33 years old, which is, kind of like getting past that like prime age for goalkeepers, and he's even got 10 clean sheets. I mean, he has been as good as it gets at the goalkeeping position for Leicester City. And I mean, it's more than the fact that he is a good goalkeeper. He's a leader of men. He's a guy that gets guys in order. He leads by example. And he's just an excellent, goalkeeper to have. And that's why he comes in at number 6. I just feel like that position is just so important to have. And for that position to be manned by Kasper Schmeichel, it's just, it can't get better than that. At number 5, we have Wilfred Nandidi. This was a little tough to place, like Wilfred Nandidi, to place him at number 5, mainly because, like I had said earlier, he hadn't played much of the season. He was out for a good chunk of the, early parts of the year. I don't even have Ricardo Pereira on this list because he, even though he did come in a little bit later, he only played 13 games so far this season. And that's not going to cut it. I can't put a guy on this list after only playing 13 games. Even though he is a very impactful player, he just didn't do enough in those games to really, quantify a top 10 spot. But Wilfred Ndidi absolutely did, because as soon as he entered that lineup, you could tell the difference, in the midfield, like how it's controlled. He's got excellent ability with the ball, 88.7 pass completion percentage of about 52 passes. He's great with the ball at his feet, 1.1 dribbles, 1.0 key passes, 1 block a game. He's one of the leaders in I believe tackles. I'm looking at this. Yeah, he is the leader in tackles, and he's played probably about 10 less games than about anybody else. Yeah, I'm looking at this. He's played 25 matches. He leads everybody else, and everyone has about 5, 6, 7. Yuri Tillemans, who's second on the team, has 15 more matches than him. That just goes to show you the kind of presence that Wilfred Ndidi has in that defense. And he's in my opinion, when I talked about him, I was to say about a couple months ago when I was doing my top 10 center defensive midfielders in the world, Ndidi was right up there with the best of them, because of what he does on that defensive end. And the fact that he was able to come in and just instantly have that effect, I just couldn't put him any lower than 5. And then when you consider the fact what he's contributing on the offensive end, he's got a goal, 3 assists in 25 appearances. I mean, the fact that you'll take anything from him on that offensive end, and he's no slouch. I mean, he can pass the ball, he gets the ball to those, strong attacking wingers and obviously the strikers very consistently, and then he anchors a defense. You really can't ask for much better than that, and that's why Ndidi comes in at number 5. At number 4, I got Harvey Barnes, the winger, I guess you could say, for this Leicester City team. He's one of the wingers. He's like a forward/midfielder. He's been such an important piece of this team. I mean, as a couple other attacking players coming up very soon have been as well. His technique with the ball has been incredible. I never would have expected a guy with his frame to be as quick as he is. The pace that he has, and combined with that dribbling skill, it really knocks defenses for a loop. And the fact that he also completes all those skills with an incredible finishing touch just makes him one of the more dangerous wingers in the Premier League. One of the more underrated wingers, I would say, because, he can do a lot of different things with the ball. He's even shown that he can pass the ball. He has the least amount of assists of the other forwards on this team, on this list, I would say, but he's still, a very effective player. A guy that, you're always going to want to find, streaking up the wing and give him the ball, because he can make magic happen with it. So that's why he comes in at number 4. And the fact that he also gets back on the defensive end, he has 1 block a game, which means he's not, he works very hard. He has a high work rate. He's not one of those guys that slacks on that defensive end after, putting in work on the offensive end. He's a guy that plays both ways, and I love that. So he comes in at number 4. He probably would have dropped down a little bit had Nandidi played a few more games this season. But still, he comes in at number 4. And number 3, I have James Maddison. Now, this was tough. I was thinking about putting Maddison second, but I just couldn't put the guy that's in second any lower than where he is. James Maddison has been pretty much everything for Leicester City. A guy who could score goals in multiple ways. A guy, the best assist man on the team. He's been an incredible creator for this team. He's got incredible dribbling skills, a guy that can make defenses fall asleep, and then he just finds an open man as he's kind of like making guys miss left and right, and he's got some ridiculous finishing. I've seen some shots from James Maddison. There was one early on in the season that he hit as top right of the goal as you could possibly hit. It was really incredible, but James Maddison has that type of ability that he can really just change a game on his own. And he is easily one of the most, if not the most important attacking piece on this team. I just couldn't put him any higher. It was close. It really was close. I was debating it. But I just couldn't put him any higher than 3 because I got at number 2, Jamie Vardy. This man has been the best player for Leicester City for so many years. I don't have him number 1 because I feel like there's another player on this list that has just impacted the game a little bit more on both ends. But Jamie Vardy is an incredible striker. I would place him probably in the top 3 strikers in the Premier League. It's close, but he's right up there. But the only thing is that he's just getting up there in age. He's 34 years old already. It's obviously not easy for him to just play as many games as he is being asked to play. But regardless, he is still as effective as they come. 14 goals, 7 assists. You would want that pass completion percentage to be a little bit higher. He's only at 65%, which is not that good. But even at 34 years old, he still gets up there. He's got 1.4 aerial duels won per game, which is very impressive. And just his ability to be able to score goals, you do not want to give him an inch in the box, but then also get players open with incredible passes. I've already talked about it once on this segment, but when I was talking about Iheanacho, that goal, that through ball that he sent to Iheanacho when he was almost on the other side of the field, it was just incredible. The pinpoint accuracy on the run, he made it happen, and he's got that ability. And he's not going to be a world beater anymore, but he can certainly be a serviceable striker, a striker that you can have in your starting 11 and feel comfortable with. And that is why Jamie Vardy needs to be at number 2. He just impacts this team on more levels than just on the field. He is that good. He is that important for this team. But at number 1, I got, in my opinion, what should be the obvious choice, Youri Tielemans. This guy has just been so consistent for this Leicester City team. He's been the most available. He's got 40 matches played. That's by far the most on this team. Maybe Kasper Schmeichel's right behind him with 37. But I don't really count goalkeepers in that position. But Youri Tielemans, once again, just so consistent. 8 goals, 5 assists, so he contributes on that offensive end. But in my opinion, he's more known for being a holding midfielder, someone that can control the tempo of a midfield, with his 80% pass completion, about 65 passes per game. He's got about 0.9 key passes a game, 1.3 tackles, 1.5 blocks. He's also got, solid ability with the ball at his feet with 1.1 dribbles a game. He just kind of does it all for this team. He is one of the best two-way players in the Premier League right now, and he is, in my opinion, the biggest reason that Leicester City are in third place and are consistently battling for one of these Champions League spots. Because had he not been available, because you've had guys miss games. You've had guys like almost every single player on this list, except for maybe Kasper Schmeichel, has missed some time. Youri Tielemans is not one of those guys, and it's been important for them to really have him controlling the midfield, keeping everything steady, and he does just that. And I honestly remember when he was playing for, I think it was Toulouse in Ligue 1. Let me actually look that up real quick to see if I got or I think it was Anderlecht. Was it Anderlecht? It was Anderlecht. He was playing for Anderlecht in the Pro League in Belgium. And then he moved to Ligue 1 in Monaco. And I remember him because I was obviously keeping track with PSG. And I saw what Youri Tielemans was doing there. He looked okay. He had some decent stretches. But I know from Anderlecht that he was playing, incredible. He had like a 13-goal, 13-assist season. He comes to Leicester City. First season wasn't incredible. But then he slowly but surely starts to get, his rhythm in. And he's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League right now. So Youri Tielemans absolutely deserves to be number 1 on this list. If you don't think so, I do not know what to tell you, to be honest. But that's going to be it for the show. As always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.